Welcome to the deep dive. We take complex source material and, well, boil it down so you can get informed fast. Today we're getting into something really central to early childhood, that's ages 1 to 8, the huge importance of play.
Yeah, and for this dive, we've pulled together quite a mix. We've got the academic research on early childhood ed, some practical case studies about outdoor play,
Yeah.
reports from groups like the California Department of Education, and even, what parents and teachers are actually saying in community forums like on Reddit, a real cross-section.
Right, and our mission here is basically to unpack the whole range of play, from completely free exploration all the way to really intentional, planned activities. We want to figure out how each of these, different ways of playing helps kids develop cognitively, socially, physically.
And we hit a key tension almost immediately in the sources. It's not if kids should play, everyone agrees on that. The real debate is how much should the adult get involved, how much structure.
Exactly. You see it everywhere. We found this one discussion, I think it was about an Australian daycare. They were contrasting Montessori, which is very focused on like individual learning with specific materials, contrasting that with worries that maybe that approach doesn't teach kids how to work well in a team.
And then you've got philosophies like Reggio Emilia on the other side, which are super child-centered. The adult's role there is more like a facilitator, setting up an interesting environment, maybe asking a question, but then stepping back, letting the kids lead the way with the materials. So yeah, that tension really frames our whole discussion.
Okay, so let's try and map this out a bit. Based on the sources, it seems like we can think about play-based learning as like a continuum, three main modes.
That's a good way to put it, a continuum. So on one end, you have child self-determined play, free play, basically. Here, it's all about the child's interests, what pops up for them. They control everything, the direction, the materials, how long it lasts, what happens. The teacher, their main job is observing, listening, and just making sure the environment is rich and supportive for whatever the kids want to do.
Got it. Free exploration. Then what's in the middle?
That's adult-child collaborative play, or guided play. It still starts with the child's interest, but the adult steps in a bit more. They support, they scaffold, maybe ask questions to stretch the child's thinking. They kind of share the steering wheel.
Can you give an example?
Sure, like say kids are just digging in the sand. The teacher might come over and say, "Oh, wow, looks like you're building something deep. Are you making a tunnel? What could we use so the sides don't fall in?" Suddenly, it's not just digging, it's like a mini engineering challenge. Still fun, but with a bit of intentional guidance.
Right, building on their lead.
Yeah.
And the third type.
That's adult planned and directed play. This is the most structured end. Here, the teacher has a specific learning goal in mind. They introduce the activity, explain the rules, guide the kids through it. Think letter bingo for recognizing letters.
Or even something like Simon Says or Freeze Dance.
Exactly. Those are fun, but they're also intentionally designed to build specific skills like listening or self-control.
Okay, that continuum makes sense. Free play, guided play, directed play. It's not just one thing. And it's important to remember, isn't it, that the sources stress play isn't just a teaching trick, it's fundamental.
Absolutely fundamental. It's described as a biological drive. And, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child actually lists play as a basic human right. Developmentally, its power comes from being this integrated experience. Kids are learning social skills one minute and cognitive skills the next. In play, it's all woven together. Social, emotional, thinking, physical, it happens all at once.
Okay, so we have the map of play types. Now, the big question, especially for parents and educators feeling that school readiness is pressure, which type of play actually delivers the best cognitive results?
Right. That's a critical question. We looked closely at a big meta-analysis. It reviewed 17 different studies comparing guided play specifically against traditional direct instruction. This was for kids aged 3 to 8.
And what was the verdict on that collaborative guided approach?
Well, the findings were pretty strong. Guided play was found to be just as effective as direct instruction and sometimes even better for developing certain skills.
Better. In what areas?
Things like early literacy, numeracy, especially understanding shapes, and those crucial executive functions.
Executive functions like focus and being able to switch between tasks, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Skills that are, really important for learning in school and just life in general. Guided play seems particularly good at boosting those.
That's really interesting. Does the research suggest why? Is it just that kids are more engaged when it's playful?
Engagement is definitely a huge part of it, yeah. Because it starts from their interest, they're naturally more motivated, but it's also about relevance. The adult helps connect the child's actions to maybe a new concept or word, And when you look at the studies focusing purely on structured play activities, you see some impressive results too. Like one study used number cards in a structured play format, and they saw kids achieve up to 100% mastery in number recognition.
Wow. Okay, so you can get those direct academic results through intentionally designed play. It's not just about drills.
Precisely. And another one, using puzzle-based play, saw cognitive scores jump significantly from around 46% up to nearly 85% over the study cycles.
That's a big leap.
It is. But the researchers also caution us a bit. There was a lot of variation between these studies. Different numbers of kids, different settings like homes versus labs, different adults involved, and a pretty wide age range, 1 to 8 years old.
Yeah, a lot of variables.
Yeah, and not every structured play activity hits the mark. One study found that just playing with Legos, for instance, didn't significantly boost symbolic thinking in 4 to 5-year-olds on its own.
Okay, so the takeaway is that guided and structured play can be as good or better than direct instruction, especially for certain key skills. But the design of that play matters. The adult's role in guiding or structuring it seems really critical for those cognitive gains.
Exactly. Thoughtful intention is key.
All right, so we've established the cognitive power of intentional play, particularly indoors or in structured settings. But what about that second classroom the sources mentioned, getting kids outside? This brings in different factors, doesn't it? Including risk.
Oh, absolutely. Moving outdoors unlocks a whole different set of benefits. There's the obvious stuff, more physical activity, developing gross motor skills, what they call physical literacy. But the psychological benefits are huge, too. Being outside, especially in nature, is linked to lower stress, better attention spans.
I remember reading it's even helpful for managing ADHD symptoms.
That's right. Several studies point to that connection. And the sources really emphasize 2 key elements for maximizing the outdoor experience: loose parts and, yes, risky play.
Okay, define loose parts for us. It sounds a bit random.
It kind of is, in a good way. Loose parts are just materials that aren't fixed down, things kids can move, manipulate, combine. Could be natural things like sticks, stones, logs, or manufactured stuff like old tires, crates, pipes, fabric, rope. The point is they're open-ended. They don't have one set purpose. And that's why they're so valuable. They fuel creativity, imagination, problem solving. Kids have to figure out what to do with them.
So it fosters independence.
Independence, confidence, leadership, collaboration, all of it. Because the kids are in charge of the materials and the ideas.
Okay, now for the tricky one.
Risky play.
Free play. Parents hear risk and, understandably, get nervous. But the research says it's vital.
It really does. We're talking about things like climbing high, moving fast, playing near elements like water, or maybe a supervised fire pit, using real tools sometimes. These experiences are crucial for building resilience, learning limits, gaining confidence, developing risk assessment skills.
But what about injuries?
That's the adult fear, of course. But the data consistently shows serious injuries from this kind of play are actually very low. When serious injuries do happen on playgrounds, it's more often linked to faulty equipment design or poor maintenance, not the act of a child taking a reasonable risk like climbing a tree.
So the focus should shift.
Yes, adults need to move from just risk avoidance to risk-benefit assessment, weighing the clear developmental benefits against the relatively small chance of serious harm.
Makes sense. Yet, despite all these benefits, outdoor play is declining.
It is. We saw that stat about Canadian kids 5 and 6 years old only getting about, 2 hours outside a day on average.
Yeah, around 1.8 to 2.1 hours. That's not much.
And we should definitely flag here, as the sources do, that access is a real issue. Not all kids have equal access to safe, green, stimulating outdoor spaces. That's a big equity concern tied into this.
A really important point. So, okay, if outdoor play, risky play, loose parts play are also beneficial, why the decline? What are the barriers?
It's complex. It's not just one thing. We can think about it using Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, looking at different layers influencing the child.
Okay, break that down for us, the immediate level.
That's the microsystem, the child's direct interactions. So here we see parents' and teachers' safety concerns may be fueled by fear of getting sued. And that pressure we already mentioned, focusing on academics, school readiness, sometimes at the expense of playtime.
Right. Then the next layer out.
The mesosystem, how the parts of the microsystem connect. A key barrier here is often poor communication between, say, the child care center and the parents. If educators value risky play but don't explain why to parents or manage expectations about things like getting muddy, you get friction.
And beyond that, wider influences.
Yeah, the exosystem and macrosystem. These are things like school policies, licensing regulations, maybe even the lack of green space in a neighborhood or bad weather limiting outdoor time. And that surplus safety framework you mentioned, this broader cultural climate driven by perceived litigation risk that influences policy at the higher levels, it all trickles down.
So overcoming these barriers needs strategies that work on multiple levels then. What can adults, especially educators, actually do?
Well, teachers have a lot of tools. One strategy highlighted is using provocations. This comes from Reggio Emilia. It's about intentionally placing objects or questions in the environment to spark curiosity and deeper exploration, like putting mirrors on the floor, or bringing in interesting natural objects like shells or pine cones, or maybe putting dinosaur books right next to the sandpit.
Ah, subtle invitations to explore.
Exactly. And teachers need to be flexible in their own role, using that whole continuum we talked about. Sometimes just setting the stage is enough. Other times they might need to step in more directly, like a play tutor. Documentation is also key, taking photos, writing down observations of kids playing. It helps teachers understand the learning that's happening, but crucially, it helps them show it to parents.
Making the learning visible. That addresses the communication piece,
It does, and sometimes communication needs to be really direct and practical.
like the example about getting dirty.
Yes, that quote from one program really stood out. They made a point of telling parents up front, your child is going to get dirty here. It seems simple, but it sets expectations. It reframes the dirt not as a problem, but as like evidence of engagement, proof of learning happening.
Shifting the perspective from mess to meaningful activity.
Precisely.
There's one more crucial aspect we need to cover play for children who've experienced trauma.
Yes, this is so important. For kids dealing with trauma, play isn't just beneficial, it's often essential for healing. It can be a way to regain a sense of control or agency. Their play might look different, maybe more chaotic or intensely repetitive, but it's serving a vital purpose in helping them cope and process experiences.
So what are the strategies there?
Trauma-informed approaches often emphasize predictability. Using visual schedules can help a lot. And providing safe outlets for big emotions through things like expressive arts, sensory play, maybe rhythmic activities, it helps with regulation.
Okay, so pulling all this together, the overwhelming message from the sources is that play isn't optional, it's not trivial. Across that whole spectrum, from free exploration to guided activities, it seems to be the most effective way for kids to learn and develop in an integrated way.
That's the core takeaway. Whether it's the cognitive boost from a well-designed game, the social skills learned negotiating turns, or the resilience built climbing a tree play does the heavy lifting. And fundamentally, it forces us as adults, parents, educators, policymakers to examine our own image of the child. Do we see kids through what some call a deficit lens, like they're empty vessels needing to be filled with instruction? Or do we see them as capable scientists, as naturally curious explorers, actively constructing their own understanding? Because that core belief shapes everything.
It dictates the kind of environments we create, the freedom we allow.
Exactly.
It makes me think of Loris Malaguzzi, the founder of Reggio Emilia. He wrote that famous poem about the 100 languages of children, didn't he? Lamenting how schools and culture often steal 99 of those languages, forcing kids into just one mode of expression, usually verbal or written.
A powerful reminder. We often narrow their world when we should be expanding it. Which really brings us to the final thought we want to leave you, the listener, with. If all this research confirms that play, in its many forms, is so critical for kids' success, cognitive, physical, social, emotional, then how might your community, your schools, your local policies, maybe even your own family culture, need to shift to make sure every child can fully exercise this fundamental right?
Especially considering those equity issues we touched on.
Yeah.
Access isn't equal.
It isn't. And the switches even note troubling observations, like how the play of young Black boys can be disproportionately seen as disruptive or even criminalized when it's often just play. So the question becomes, what needs to change structurally, culturally, to ensure all children truly have the safe, supportive, and equitable space they need to thrive through play? Something to think about.